Welcome back to Cinema d'Amore. I'm your host, Justin Morgan, and I'm here with
Chuck.
And we are a movie-based podcast, occasionally television. And we usually do themes. This year we're switching it up. We're doing basically a loose connectivity between each and every single film. Since I'm starting, I'm going to go off of what we did last, which was Tokyo Godfathers. The show kind of has a game aspect to it with no prizes whatsoever.
None.
Yeah, if Chuck can figure it out, then cool. Chuck figures it out. Maybe I'll keep track of like how many guesses it takes. I'm not particularly going out of my way to make things difficult, but I guess I'll just keep track of attempts. This film, what we're doing, let's see if I get this right. Amores, perros from 2000.
It's like the whitest way you could have said that.
Also, you're white too, so how would you say it?
Amores, perros.
So you just rolled your R's a little bit.
You got to roll those R's. Also, you did hit it with the perros.
Perros. Alejandro González Iñárritu. How do you say that?
I mean, that was better.
Okay.
That's closer, I feel like.
He directed, he edited this, probably produced it.
Probably.
We know
just did
him.
Everything.
He's a 2-time Academy Award-winning director for Birdman and The Revenant, but 14 years earlier, depending on which of those two movies I just mentioned, we're back to Amores Perros. I'm going to butcher a lot of things, but I think that was closer than what I would expect. You know, at least I tried. I tried listening to how it was said. And like that name is, that is a hard name to say. I haven't seen this movie before. This is a first for me. It's part of like kind of a loose trilogy with 21 Grams. I also haven't seen, and Babel, which I have seen, which is kind of fun because that stars Brad Pitt, right?
Yes.
And Brad Pitt is kind of in this movie.
Somewhat.
He has a cameo for being in a magazine that one of the characters looks at.
Yeah. Maybe that was his way of being like, I want to work with Brad Pitt so bad. Maybe if I put him in my movie in the background, he'll hear about it.
He got a credit for this movie. They had to like pay him to be in this movie, probably.
I mean, probably had to get it somewhere authorized.
So, Amores Perros means what, Chuck?
I did have to look that up. I know perros is dog. It was like weird the way it was. I think it's like based off of a phrase, and it's like a dog's love or something like that is what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to kind of work out to that.
The subtitle said "loves a bitch."
That's what they said was like the alternate title for the movie, or how it was like referred to in some other countries, I think.
Yeah, this movie has a theme of dogs. Dogs is a very heavy motif. I guess it's really more of a motif than a theme.
Yeah.
There's so many dogs in this, and the dogs are always mirroring the stories. It's one giant story that more or less is linear. I mean, we do jump into some things out of order, but for the most part, it is happening in order. And it's 3 sets of characters that it follows around. The only one that I recognize really is, I don't know how I can butcher more names. Gail Marcia Bernal. I've seen him in a ton of things. The main, I guess, the character of like the homeless guy, he's been in a few things that I've seen. It said he was in Die Another Day, and I'm like, I don't really remember what character he would be in that
probably
movie.
Like he probably played a hitman in that movie or something, or an assassin.
I hope he was just like a receptionist, a scientist. Do you want to make a guess at what the connection is from Tokyo Godfathers now?
I mean, I felt like there was a lot that could be in there. The number 3, there's 3 stories, and there's 3 characters. I mean, I even tried to, was thinking about, it connects back in some ways to 3 Godfathers as well. There's a bank robbery in both films. I think I thought of one other thing too. Oh, there's a character that's a wino that loses his family, loses his daughter, and has to reconnect with her in the end.
That's it. That's that one. I went off of like the vagabond character. I wanted a homeless protagonist. So I Googled it and I was like, you know what? I've had this movie for a while. I haven't watched it. I actually assumed that you probably had it and have seen it.
I had never seen it either. I've seen the other two. I've seen 21 Grams and Babel, but I hadn't seen this one.
The other one that I was considering doing was Blue Ruin, which I like Blue Ruin, but I have seen it. So I was like, I'm just going to try to freshen this up and go with something completely new. And I had zero idea of anything of what was in this movie at all. Everything was a surprise to me.
This movie has everything: dog fighting, people getting into car accidents, or one major car crash.
Yeah, go ahead. Pull us the fawn. Give us a list.
Guys getting shot while they're at the hibachi restaurant. Just trying to enjoy their shrimp flipped at them. Man,
robberies, affairs,
yeah,
wheelchairs. I started finding the second story to be really funny, and I don't know if it was meant to be funny or if I'm demented.
I don't think it's supposed to be funny. I guess if you go in order, talk about the first story first, which is our dog fighter.
Octavio and Susanna. It's their love story.
Yeah,
all these
he's trying to steal his brother's girlfriend.
Yeah, they live in like a poor part of Mexico City. His brother's like just a straight up abusive asshole. The brothers live with their mom and his brother's girlfriend, or his wife, right? They're married.
It's his wife, yeah.
They have one kid when the movie starts. And yeah, he's in love with his brother's wife. He finds his way into the underground dog fighting scene in Mexico City. Because
his dog kills another guy's dog after he tried to have him attacked.
Right, like the best dog fighter there ever was. His dog, like, that can kill anything. The family's dog that got loose, and he sicked the dog on it to practice, or he was egged on by his cronies. His dog ended up losing that fight. So he comes and he threatens the main character of this story, Octavio, who's played by Berdal, just in poverty, and then he kind of realizes that maybe this dog can help him get out of the poverty. So he brings that dog in with his buddy Jorge, who has the worst fucking hair I've ever seen. Short, but little pieces that are long and blonde, just around like the sides and the front, not the top of his head.
It's an interesting choice.
Yeah, but he finds out that he has one of the best fighting dogs of all time.
I couldn't tell in this movie either. I was like, are they just actually filming dog fights? Because this looks real.
Dude, it looks so good. Well, it opens on the prologue is basically a car chase scene, and the dog's in the back bleeding out. It basically starts like Reservoir Dogs, but with an actual dog. They're like rushing to, I don't know where in that scene. I'm assuming like some sort of hospital or vet. Like, I have no idea where they were going in that moment, but they're being chased after and shot after, and it ends in a car accident. So, we jump into the past where we pick up this first story, and I immediately looked up to be like, do they actually have like dead dogs, or like how do these dogs look so realistic? They said that they were all live dogs. No dog got hurt. They just sedated all the dogs. Through the editing is how they hid the fact that the dogs are playing and not fighting. I guess they like did some trick with like fishnet or something to like wire their mouths shut so they actually aren't biting each other when they're fighting. But they had like the Mexican PETA there to like make sure that the animals weren't abused. I'm going to go out on a limb and say these animals were probably kind of abused, since they're pretty like rough with these animals. Like there's one where the guy has the dog in the car, and it's like he keeps dropping the head. I'm like, this dog, if sedated, is going to have like brain damage or like a headache when it wakes up, because he's just throwing the dog around. You can really see it there's one moment, I think it's with the brother. Oh, no, it's not the brother. In the third story, we'll get to it, but there's a moment when the dog has a gun to its head, and that dog's face is so funny because I guess they just went with the best shots that they have, but that dog looks like it's like very happy and playful to be there. It says like this weird look out of the corner of its eyes, like it's too damn cute and it's playful. The dog's supposed to be a killer, but that's jumping more into the third story. There's so much stuff happening in this movie.
Yeah. Well, he eventually loses his. He has that guy that go ask for the rematch. We get that montage of him fighting dogs against that same guy, which is like kind of comical because it's always that same guy, and like I guess it's seemingly implied that like every dog that he keeps bringing keeps getting killed by Octavio's dog every time because we keep seeing him show up with new dogs, and they're like, "Up, you lose again!" Like he shows up with so many different dogs. And they say they had 15 fights together before the last fight, so presumably he's had 15 different dogs that he's tried to have fight this dog, and they keep killing every single one of his dogs every time.
Yeah, and they're setting up a private match between the two guys, and I was like, we know where this is going. We know that there's going to be the dog's going to get hurt, and they're going to be in some sort of chase. So I thought it was going to be more so to draw them in and injure the dog, but it did end up being for a legitimate fight. But the story basically is the guy's just trying to get as much money as he can to impress his brother's girlfriend and steal her away so they can run away to Juarez and maybe have a produce store or something.
Such a very specific idea.
Yeah, we see scenes of like his brother works at a grocery store and he robs places, and he keeps talking about how he wants to rob this huge bank. He's starting small. They don't necessarily get to that point until later. He's scary. I would describe him as like he's always fighting people. Like he fights his brother when his brother's trying to buy supplies for the baby because he's like, that's my family, and he takes great offense to it. But he's just trying to impress that girl, which he's partially like kind of just creepy. Like she's in an abusive relationship where she's trapped in this house with this family, and now the brother's like trying to like
his buddy Jorge's like isn't that, I mean, that's your brother's wife, and he's like, oh, well, I liked her first anyway.
Yeah, I mean, she does eventually like cave in to have like an intimate relationship with him, but the way I felt is that she was just kind of doing it to just go along with it because it was easier than fighting. So like, yeah, it's not the most romantic of the love stories, but that's the gist of why he's doing the dog fights. And they talk about why, like she even says like, oh, we have enough money, we can leave right now. And he's like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta make more. This will be the last time. He's gonna take care of his brother too. So he pays some of like the dog fighting guys to go rough his brother up. They do.
Didn't rough him up enough.
They rough him up, and it just makes me laugh because he gets home and just his mom's home, and he's like, where's Susanna? She ran away with your brother. I don't think they're coming back. His plan backfired into, instead of being scared and not messing with him anymore, now his brother just literally ran away with the girl that he wanted to be with.
And then he gets into his car accident, and then we just don't know what's going on with him for a while, like whether he dies in that car accident once we get to the second story.
Well, when they get to that final dog fight, he wins the dog fight, but then the other guy shoots his dog. So this is how his dog gets injured.
But then he stabs that guy.
And then he goes out to the car, grabs a knife, stabs the guy. It looks like it's just his like cronies that follow them. So I don't know if the guy survives his knife wound. I don't remember if we see him again. Occasionally we see stuff that's not at the, in the present time, but for the most part, it does happen in that order. The other characters that we briefly see is the vagabond homeless guy with all the dogs. He's just surrounded by several dogs all the time. The guy, before he fights Octavia's dog, is going to sick his dog on the homeless man's pack, but the homeless man comes out with his machete, which I don't necessarily know why he has it, but it does. It comes back into play to like save some people after the car accident that happens.
He's got to have a machete
because he's homeless.
He's homeless.
He's also like assassinating people.
Don't jump ahead, man. You don't try to. You're trying to avoid the second story because it's the worst of the movie. I know.
No. He does in the first story shoot that guy.
Yeah, towards the end.
They do go back and they explain, like, they show more of it, but the hibachi scene where he shoots the guy and then the blood's like frying on the stovetop, like that's pretty early on. He sees that this person's dead. He goes to their funeral, and you pick up pretty easily that that's his ex-wife, and the girl that he's watching is his daughter. And then we have one more story that's like hinted at a little bit in the beginning here, which is the guy that is like rich. I'm not necessarily sure what he does, but he's a family man and like
I
a
don't
very
even think
rich
he's rich.
Well, he seems rich for like what like it made me think
I mean, he's
of
not homeless.
well, it made me think of Roma. Their house was considered like the fancy house. And I felt like he had like a nice fancy house with lots of things in it. He's having like some sort of affair. That's all like you really know until it gets into the second story, which is his story, which is him and the supermodel that he he leaves his family for. And I did not hate the second story at all. I just thought it was funny because
It's so bad.
this model, or I think she's not like an actress or something. She's just a model.
I think she's just a model.
She gets all these like endorsements and stuff for her beauty, and then she more or less gets once she gets in this car accident, she's considered ugly. So like she loses all her endorsements, and then like there's signs that her husband doesn't like her, or not her husband, but the boyfriend doesn't like her anymore. Like he left his family for her. He took like a personal snapshot of her and put it on a billboard. It made her uncomfortable at first.
That wasn't his billboard. That was just her billboard. I think it was just weird because he bought an apartment like right next to it.
She said something about that photo being a private photo that like he had or he took. So
that's an ad campaign.
Yeah, he gave it up. I don't know how he did it. He gave it up or something. But the giant.
I think you misinterpreted that.
Well, he said he took the picture, but I don't know. Maybe I did.
That's because he's in ads. He does the magazine.
He's an ad man.
Yeah.
She's not even like really disfigured, but like as she's in this wheelchair, it's like haunting her from across the street because like she loses all these deals. They're like, "You're not hot anymore. We don't want you." Her dog, that somehow Richie, that's the only name I can think. Richie. There's just this weird part in the story where like they get this when he shows off this apartment, she like breaks the floor with her foot, and it's like, oh, we'll just have to repair that hole. But then Richie goes down into the hole in the floor. You think he's dead, but then they keep thinking that they're hearing the dogs, and they're finding all these rats and shit that are under the floor. It just sort of like escalates there and becomes kind of like reminds me of like The Conversation or something, where they keep thinking they're hearing Richie and they're tearing up the floor. Like there's a part where he's like, we'll just put some chocolate on this plate in his bowl or whatever, and he'll come to it. I'm like, I thought that like the chocolate was going to end up killing the dog or something like that, or attracting the rats, and it never did. I thought that she was going to fall through the floor at some point in her gigantic wheelchair. What made the story so terrible for you?
It's just not interesting.
I found
it's
it
not
funny.
Interesting. It connects the least to the first and third stories. Connect a lot, and then this story doesn't connect to anything. It feels like too much. It feels like it's there just because he wanted to have 3 of everything, and he couldn't figure out how to get a third story that was good, so he just put this in there.
I don't know if that's the case, but he did say that in Mexico during this time, the film scene was not good, and most anybody that made a movie only made 1 movie. They were lucky if they made 2. So he said, this is Alejandro Iñárritu. He said that I basically put everything into that first movie because I never thought that I was going to be able to make another movie after that movie. He also was talked about how he would have never shot it that way or had like so much action and shit going on because it took him like 8 months to edit the movie after the fact. So maybe I think you are a little right there. I don't know if he was thinking of like mathematically or symbolically 3s, but he was like, I got this story and I'm putting it in there. I got 3 stories. I'm putting them in the 1 movie.
Yeah. So it makes this movie is long for a first time film. Like most of the first time directors, it's like a 90-minute movie. This is 2.5 hours. Yeah, and you definitely could have cut that middle story out and not lost any quality of the movie.
What's crazy to me too is the cinematographer, Rodrigo Prieto, probably butchering that too. He has done so many fucking movies, and I thought that the cinematography in this looked awful at times. Like, it's a handheld camera almost entirely. Like, I can't think of it never being, But when they're doing like chase scenes and stuff, like there's moments where like you could tell the camera person like fucking fell over, and they just keep the shot in the movie. Like you could tell that they like ran into the fucking wall, but I felt like the editing was good enough to kind of like save grace and put this back together. But this director of photography, he ended up doing like the last several movies with Martin Scorsese. He did Wolf of Wall Street, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Irishman, Silence. And then he did, I wrote down everything because like some things are pretty fucking funny in here. He did We Bought a Zoo. So I'm sure that you were excited about that. He did Brokeback Mountain. He did Taylor Swift featuring Post Malone, Fortnite. He did a couple Taylor Swifts, but he did the Nespresso commercial with George Clooney, Argo, Barbie, if I didn't say that, Passengers, 8 Mile, 25th Hour, 21 Grams, Babel, and Beautiful. He's like made such really great looking films, so I have no idea necessarily what's going on with this one where they are just like running into like I don't know where they're like it's just so energetic and natural that we're just gonna keep it and go with it. I have no idea. I was trying to see how these people all like teamed up and instantly recognized the conductor, butcher his name too, Gustavo Santaolalla. I know I'm not saying that right. No R's to roll, so maybe I said that a little bit better. But yeah, I know him from The Last of Us, but he would have got his start with this movie, and they did like a lot of the same things. Babel, 21 Grams. They did Motorcycle Diaries, and I don't know. Now he does weird TV shit. He did Last of Us TV show also, but he did like the theme song to Making a Murderer.
Yeah. The only thing I could think, and the second story is just so weird because that is also the story I feel like where everyone just seems dumb, just more than any of the other stories. Like the husband that leaves his wife seems dumb, like like he's trying to have this affair, but he's like not even good at hiding it. It seems like his wife is on to him when they get the weird calls with no one answering the phone. The model's dumb that like she thinks like the guy's just going to leave his wife and everything's going to work out. The dog's dumb for jumping into a hole in the floor. They're dumb for not fixing the giant hole in the floor. It's there and they just don't do anything about it. They just presumably have been walking around that giant hole in the floor when it happened. When he tears up the floor at the end, and then she comes back in her other wheelchair, the motorized wheelchair, and there's still just a bunch of holes in the floor, and I'm just like, that dog's just going to jump right back into one of those holes.
Mm-hmm. Or like how she has to wheel around them. Like I was expecting her wheel to fall into one of them.
The doctor's dumb. That she's like, man, my leg's really bad. And he's like, I guess it's fine. And then at the end is like, we definitely should have done something sooner. I'm going to have to take the leg. And I'm like, what? It seemed like it was infected the last time she was here. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah, sorry, man. It had gangrene.
I guess I didn't notice that last time.
I had to amputate the whole leg.
Yeah, I missed that somehow. Even though she was just here a week ago and I was looking at it and definitely seemed infected.
I don't know what it was because like the ad guy seemed like he would spare no expense on her, but I'm like, but then he's always like a scam doctor or something? Because exactly like you said, it's like, you know, if you give enough money, I can do it. But then, like you said, he can't do it.
Yeah. Well, he says he doesn't have any money, presumably, I guess, because his wife's like taking all of his money or something. Because that's why he keeps saying, like, I don't have money to fix the floor. I don't have money to do this.
Yeah, I think he was banking on that model money.
Yeah. And then as soon as she's not making money being a model, it's like, oh my God, I have to do things. Yeah.
But then it turned it around, so maybe it was a good idea that he put it in the middle. I was high when I watched this movie, and that might be partially why I thought the second part was hilarious. I was just like, everything was really funny to me because I was like you said, all the characters are stupid. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? The choices that everybody makes is so dumb. And then anytime that they talked about like her, like she's a monster, like she's ugly or something, it was just always hilarious. It was like, you know, now that you're ugly, I don't think we're going to be able to afford this stuff. And I don't know, it made me laugh. I kind of thought that like there's a scene where he comes home and she's locked herself in the room and had like some sort of, what would be the gangrene attack or something.
Yeah.
I actually thought that like the rats had gotten to her because there were so many rats down underneath the floor. I also don't know, like, if I wasn't hearing it, but like I wasn't hearing any dog sounds when they were like, Richie, I hear Richie. They would go nuts and just start bashing holes into the floor in different places. I mean, I like half expected that guy to kill the dog from like how brutal he was about like hammering that chisel in there to like bust up the floor. I'm like, he's gonna end up piercing Richie. But he finds Richie. He pulls Richie out of the floor. The shot's also funny because the dog's like wagging its tail. But then like the wide shot, I'm like, I think Richie might be dead. Like he's not moving. I was like, so he's been down there for what, fucking several days, I think, over the course of this story. Yeah, when she comes back from the hospital amputated, the dog is alive and healthy. And like you said, they didn't fix the floorboards, but I didn't really think that Richie was going to make it. But I do feel like there's dogs that match each story. Like that first dog, is his name Kofi or Coffee?
Coffee, yeah.
The Rottweiler. He is basically, I wouldn't say like he's kind of harmless, but like he starts off kind of harmless, defending himself, and then ultimately like ruining everything and almost getting himself killed. And I felt like that kind of mirrored Octavio a lot. So I was like trying to figure out what the hell was going on with the dogs and how it tied into that story. Richie getting lost under the floor, having all the rats attacking him or something. Like, I don't even understand why Richie couldn't get out of there. But Richie's stuck under the floor. He's under there for several days before he gets saved. And then more or less everything's going to be okay with Richie. Or like maybe you said how you pointed out all the holes in the floor. That dog could fall back in again. So what is that saying about this story and these people? Is it saying that this relationship's not going to last? There's so many holes in the floor, like they're just going to fall through the floor again, metaphorically.
Yeah, could happen.
And then we get to the homeless guy again. We find out El Chivo. What does that mean?
Couldn't tell you. Didn't look that deep into that.
I thought you would just know because you knew some Spanish.
I don't know that one.
Well, I know it's the something. I'm Googling it, but I typed one extra letter. It's a song by Burner. Not necessarily what I'm trying to look up. Okay. It's a Salvadoran slang word meaning great, cool, awesome, fantastic. It's also an animal, a kid, a billy goat, or a nanny goat. An incorrectness, a fault, a flaw. So I don't really know what it's supposed to connect. I don't even really know what the fuck that means for that guy, to be honest with you.
I mean, he is cool, I guess.
He's cool, but he's flawed. Yeah. In the first story, you see him protect those dogs, and you see him kill somebody. And then in the second story, you see him with that Rottweiler bandaged up. Okay, he's going to fucking steal that guy's dog or take that guy's dog. When we get to his story and we find out that he's basically, he kind of went crazy. He takes like odd jobs. Like they make it sound like he'll do anything. So like in the beginning, I thought like he was just straight up an assassin. And then in this story, it was sort of like he did come off more of a mess than he did in the beginning, like the first one. I also love that he's like kind of feels like he's like a kleptomaniac. He like pickpockets people. That one scene that we see with the brother, the abusive brother, and the girl like leaving to go to that bus station or wherever the hell it was. Find out later that he like pickpocketed her wallet. And I like that her wallet had all those like stickers and stuff in it, because like for some reason in their house they had like stickers of things plastered everywhere that I'm sure weren't legally in this movie. Like I saw like Dragon Ball Z and Tweety Bird and like all kind of random ass, like the most random things. So like I do like when he pulls out that wallet, they just have all the stickers on it. So you're like, okay, it's her wallet, before they start, or the other guy's wallet, before they start going through all that stuff. So he pickpockets their money that he's running away with. He essentially gets all the money that Kofi earned. Like he steals the money right out of the guy's pocket when he is like the first on scene to the car accident. And then he like steals the guy's dog. He gets the bullet out, or the bullet went through him. I don't know. He didn't take the bullet out, but he heals the dog, raises the dog, And then one day the dog kills all of his other dogs, which, I mean, you could tell, you could tell that's where it was going to go. And I'm like, oh, God. Where he's like, the dog's all bloody. Where are you wounded? You're not wounded anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fucking
What could have happened?
murdered all. Yeah, he murdered all. He murdered all those dogs. And he goes in, and then, like, that's when he has the gun, and you think he's going to shoot the dog. And that's the scene where, like, I thought the dog looked, like, hilariously cute. The dog's expressions for when the gun's in its face are like, they're like the least well matched scenes for like everything else of the dog fights looking so realistic. Where I was in the same boat with you earlier, Chuck. I thought, yeah, are they really fighting? Are they really fighting these dogs? And they say no, and Mexican PETA says no.
You're just gonna have to trust Mexican PETA.
We're just gonna have to trust Mexican PETA. There's really nothing more that we can do.
He's trying to track down his daughter, who's, I guess, works with this guy that he's been paid to kill.
Mm-hmm.
He sees them together at the place. It's like, I don't know if it's just coincidence that he gets paid to kill this guy and then his daughter's also there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe the bad thing for this being a first-time view for both of us. I almost feel like this movie benefits from going back and, like, knowing how everything's connecting and where they're going. Because, like, when they're following some of the characters around, we know they get in a car accident, so I'm assuming the second car was going to be another character that we were already introduced to, which was true, but we didn't necessarily know who or how everybody was going to, like, come together. But I think that's kind of how Babel ended up working. It was a bunch of smaller stories that connected together.
Yeah.
I didn't look shit up, so I don't really know, like, how to like, maybe there's probably better interpretations for these dogs. Like the guy that has many, many dogs, all strays, tries to help these dogs, ends up getting all the dogs pretty much killed for misjudging one of them, I guess is what you would say. So is there like a misjudgment for him where he fucks up and gets everybody killed?
Like I said, I think his story, Octavio and Susanna have the more interesting stories, which we only get a little bit of Octavio in this one. We see that he did survive the car crash, and his brother gets killed in a bank robbery by the cops, one of them that like pays off the assassin that does jobs for him every once in a while. And then like at the funeral, he's still like, come on, when are we running away? She's like, I don't think this is the right time to be talking about something like that. He's just like, oh, this is the best time to talk about something like that. We can still leave. I still have some money. We can run off. And she doesn't go with him to the bus station. So presumably she goes off on her own, and he doesn't.
We know that the brother gets
her
killed.
Yeah.
He does finally do the bank robbery, and he gets shot by somebody. His buddy survived. That didn't work out too well.
No.
They had Octavio's money, but it was probably pickpocketed by that point by the goat, the El Chivo. I know somebody that knows Spanish is going to be listening to this and be like, this guy is really butchering all this shit. But yeah, he gets hired to kill the one guy, and then
by his partner, who we figure out later is his half-brother.
Yeah, they find out it's his half-brother. He's playing like a game with the guy instead of straight up killing the guy. Like, can you guess who hired me? Can you guess who it was? The guy figures it out. But then he doesn't assassinate the guy for when the guy shows up with his money. He basically is like, I'm not going to do this. You guys, you're going to have to talk it out, or I'm going to leave this gun and you take care of it.
Pretty much leaves him in a jigsaw trap.
Yeah.
See who can get the gun first.
The one guy's like, I paid you to kill him. And the brother's like, what the fuck? Like, why would you pay him to kill me? Like, why? What the hell? They're not talking it out. It's the first guy that can get the gun is going to get the gun. I don't even remember if we saw who killed him. I don't remember.
Nope.
That was the highlight of that. And then, like, yeah, it starts to break into kind of like sort of an epilogue where we see the one brother's funeral. He's all fucked up, too. I remember jumping back to the second story when they were showing that girl's leg with, like, the pus and everything. And it did, like, the face of the guy that was the boyfriend ad guy was just, like, so grossed out by it. Like, that, I don't know. That's why I thought that was supposed to be funny. But nothing else seemed funny in any of the other stories. They all seemed rather serious. But I'm glad I saw it. Chuck was lucky enough to watch it on Amazon Prime before it went off.
It's gone now.
Yeah, it's gone by the time you're listening to this. I have this on Criterion. I don't know if it's on the channel or anything like that. I kind of thought it would have been on HBO Max because they like anything that's Criterion related. Max seems to have that shit, but I don't know. Chuck's like, God damn it! There's only 2 more days for this movie, and I'm like, hey, at least there's 2 days instead of no days. It would have been worse if you're like, oh, we just lost it 2 days ago, and it was like you had a week to watch it. You missed it, yeah. Sorry, you had things to do and you were busy. But yeah, I guess part of the excitement for us is last year when we did all our genres, everything was planned out for practically the entire year. Yeah. We knew what genres, we basically knew what movies. At least 6 months ahead, we pretty much knew every single thing that we were going to do. And now the change up is going to be this. We're not going to have episodes like every single Friday unless maybe something special calls for it.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. But we're going to do every other week, and we're going to keep this like connective tissue going. Something in this movie will be the reason why Chuck picks the next movie, and I'll do my best to try to guess and figure it out what it is. Because, yeah, going with a movie like this that I hadn't seen before, I hope it connected the way that I thought it would connect. So I wasn't like, oh, shit, I made us watch a movie that didn't work the way that I read on Google.
It's always the worry when you... I feel like I've done that in the past. Like I can't think of specifically one that would have happened for, but where you're like, it's, whatever it is, like movies about this, and you Google that exact phrase, like movies about this, and then you watch the movie and you're like, I guess it had that in it for 2 seconds. Like it's not really a main feature of the movie.
Right. It had the like smallest connection.
Yeah,
you named several connections. Mine was the vagabond character. I wanted the homeless character, but then he tied into his past with his daughter and all that. Like there were more connective tissues than obviously just that.
Yeah.
So maybe not even themes. We might pick things like behind the scenes things that connect these movies. Or I thought you were going to be like, at the very least, be like, well, was it in English? Tokyo Godfathers, and neither was this. Like.
Yeah. Foreign movies would have worked.
Make up some very loose connection.
Yeah.
But I tried to do something thematically that worked out, but very easily could not have worked. Like, could have very easily been the wrong thing. The idea is after we watch the movie to kind of like brainstorm and come up with something. So that's why we're going to end up doing bi-weekly episodes, just to give us a little bit of time to hopefully be able to find a movie if we need it, because that was the biggest difference. When we had something planned 6 months ahead of time, you could wing it and be like, I'll just see what's streaming around that time, or keep an eye out for like a cheap Blu-ray or something if you didn't actually own it. Another thing too is sometimes we pick out these movies way in advance, and by the time we're doing it, it's just, I don't want to say maybe not as exciting anymore, like we felt several months beforehand. So hopefully this is a way to keep it fresh. And I actually thought that this was a really good movie. I guess I should have probably assumed that since it seems to have started so many people's careers. I am so game for picking some of the worst fucking movies of all time. I actually don't think that I can do worse than some of the movies that we've already done.
Yeah.
I don't think I can hit that low of a bar. I'm not going out of my way to try to get the best of the best. I'm just looking for an interesting conversation, and I don't even know if we had it trying to break this one down, because I was like, there are so many things going on in this movie right now. My focus was on like, let's try to pronounce these names correctly if I can. Yeah, I'm interested to see where this year goes and what your pick ends up being. He's gonna let me know in a couple days. And that's how this thing's going to go. We had people reach out and say, hey, you should do movies about this. And I'm thinking, well, now we're going so fucking wild because the connectivity thing is it's basically throwing themes right out the door. So, like, what can you plan? I mean, I guess if you pick something like, you're like, shit, this connects to Mrs. Doubtfire, and fucking Fred loves Mrs. Doubtfire. So let's see if we can, on short notice, get our friend Fred to join. Maybe we just have him laughing. We just record him laughing and play that during the thing. But that's another thing. It'll probably be very hard to have guests on this show because we're not giving ourselves enough of a heads up before we record. But we're keeping it fun for ourselves and hopefully for you. And I think I'll just add like a robot voice explaining this in all the upcoming episodes, so I don't have to break down what the hell we're doing every single time. You got the right connective tissue on your third try when you're throwing out your ideas. So you did well.
It's a good start.
Yeah, we'll see how I'll do. He'll be like, no. But I'm excited. It does add some excitement to it. So we'll see you in 2 more weeks. What's it going to be? I don't know. See you there.
We are Cinema d'Amore. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter to stay up to date with news and information on upcoming episodes. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, Pandora, Alexa, or iHeartRadio. It would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to our podcast on your platform of choice. We also appreciate feedback, so rate us, review us, and let us know what you think. And above all else, thank you for listening.